So, howdy ho, neighborinos. Hello and welcome to Grimlight Games. Today, I just could not decide on a game to play. I didn't really see anybody on Heroes of the Storm. I didn't really feel like solo queuing today. I thought about starting a new save file in Stardew Valley because I haven't actually played through it again since the big update that he dropped not too long ago. So I think maybe sometime in the near future we're gonna revisit Stardew Valley because I absolutely love that game. It's pinnacle cozy game in my humble opinion. But yeah, I was doing a little coding work this morning before I hopped off to go work, and I was enjoying what I was doing and what I was working on. So I figured, you know what, let's do some more coding work. I haven't got as much done the last couple weeks as I wanted to. So it's a good time to do it. Definitely a lot has changed since our last run through. We've got quite a bit of our scriptable objects now, and hold up, why? Oh, I was like, why isn't my UI visible? That was weird. Okay, all right. So we've got our UI set up now, and we're working on building out our various weapons and tools. And one of the things that I just spent some time on was making sure that we could scroll through our selection utilizing the middle mouse button, because I like when I have that option in games to switch around to that. And then, of course, we can also do it with our number keys as well. Now, the idea here is eventually we're going to be able to also script out our tools and whatnot, and then we can just kind of add them down here into our UI. Just really inventory space, right? Obviously, we'll have to make different scripts that will work for each of the individual tools and or weapons. But yeah, it's coming along fine. We're in a good spot. Learning some cool stuff, and I learned how to set this up so it's just so much easier. So I can literally increase the inventory space just by adding extra UI elements, and then where is it? And then in our movement map, right, in our inventory, I just have to add extras here. And then our mouse wheel function, because of the way we scripted it, it's just going to automatically pick up on how many we add into our inventory set in our hierarchy. So yeah, that'll be great. Very easy to set up future things. So let's get our other two weapons working. So right now we still just have our sword, so while you can see these, we can't actually utilize them quite yet. So here we go.
Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, we'll be setting up one of my favorite Unity features of all time, scriptable objects. I'm going to go ahead and right-click, create, C# script, and I'm going to go ahead and call mine weapon info.
All right, scriptable objects, fantastic. I think I've worked with scriptable objects before, but we're gonna find out. Maybe this will be.
Let's go ahead and open that up. If you've never seen a scriptable
a
object
much
before,
easier
the way
way
that we
to
rig
do
and
it.
set it up is instead of inheriting from mono behavior, we can simply inherit from scriptable object. And above it, the way that we can set it up, there's a couple different ways to do it, but the bare bones way to set it up is simply using create asset menu and then creating a menu name.
Oh. Okay, that just created its own thing. Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. And I think this is actually what we're going to create. Interesting, though, that it did that. I don't think we need that. Weapon info, a scriptable object. Okay. I was like, what is going on there? That was just extra. We did not need that. Okay.
name where we can call it whatever we want, but I'm going to go ahead and
Wait. Why did it add this in? I don't know why you added that in, but we do not need that. Okay. Yeah, we've got our public class weapon info scriptable object.
call
Okay.
mine new weapon. And then we can just start plugging in whatever property we want.
Okay, so we're going to get rid of this for now. And I guess we're also going to get rid of order for now. I don't know if we're going to end up using those
Want to give
later.
each individual
We'll find
scriptable
out.
object. For now, all I want is a public game object that I'm going to call the weapon prefab for things like the different sword, bow, and staff prefabs, respectively, and a
Okay.
public float that I'm going to call weapon cooldown. That way we can plug into each individual scriptable object, and we might be able to give our staff a longer cooldown than the bow, and so on and so forth. And that's all we need so far to set it up. Let's head back into Unity and create a couple of our first scriptable objects. I'm going to create my scriptable.
Cool. Wow, that's it? Really? That's super easy. All right, so how is this going to
in my
work?
assets and scripts folder. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new folder called scriptable objects. I think.
Okay. Objects, no objects. Need that hard CT in there.
I think we spelled that right. And in this section, when you right click and click create, you'll now see at the very top above folder this new weapon file name that we created.
Oh.
Sweet. Let's go ahead and create one. I'm going to call this one
Okay.
sword. And you can now see our two properties for that specific scriptable object, our sword.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Once we create our weapon prefab, we can drag that in and create the weapon cooldown. Let's go ahead and check what we have our current sword cooldown set to. So clicking the sword, scrolling down, I've got my sword attack CD at 0.5. Let's go.
Right. Oh, we should probably check to make sure that's what our sword cooldown is. Yep, 0.5. Okay.
Go ahead and just plug that in. Simple enough. And let's go ahead and prefab these three different game object weapons. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder called weapons.
Awesome. There we go.
And I'm going to drag in my sword, my bow, that is.
Oh, because I don't have an
Really
image set to that yet.
Anything at
That's
the
why.
moment, and staff as well. So let's go ahead and delete those three items.
All right, so we've got those. We can go ahead and... Perfect.
The way that we're going to set it up is now that those are prefabbed items, every single time we toggle our inventory, let's just instantiate the game object prefab and attach it to our player controller as a child to our player parent. All right, back in our scripts and scriptable objects folder, I'm going to go ahead and create two more. For a bow,
two new
and a
weapons.
staff. I'm going to go ahead and set my staff to be a bit longer at 1.2, and my bow maybe. Be a bit faster at 0.3. We'll get to that when we get to it. A little tedious, but the best way to set these weapon prefabs is click this little tiny lock icon in the very top right, so that way we can navigate back to our prefabs folder, weapons, and in my bow scriptable object, I'll drag my bow in, unclick the lock, and...
Okay. So we just got to set our objects now. Do prefabs, bow, boom. Scriptable objects. We'll go to staff next. Lock in the staff. Boom. Sword. Lock. Weapons. Sword. Boom.
Back in my scriptable objects folder, I'll go
Easy
ahead and
peasy
drop
lemon
that
squeezy.
staff scriptable object and assign that as well.
Ugh.
All right, there we go. Our scriptable objects are set up and in place. And now that we have 3 scriptable objects, well, what can we do with them? I think a good next thing to set up would be setting up a script on our inventory called inventory slot. So I'm going to go ahead and create that C# script, and I'm going to call it inventory slot. And we can attach this inventory slot class to each individual inventory slot in our UI canvas and attach that weapon info scriptable object to it so that we can gain access to whatever information that we need. So as a serialized field, I'm going to go ahead and create a private weapon info that I'm just going to call weapon info with a lowercase w. And then I'm going to create a public weapon info function called get weapon info. And all that's going to do is return the weapon info as needed. Let's head back into Unity and attach these inventory slots to their respective.
Perfect. Easy squeezy.
Respective images in the UI. All right, opening up my UI canvas and in my active inventory, I'm going to select all 5 inventory slots, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and drag in my inventory slot class.
Okay. Is that? Oh, it's our UI canvas. Okay, active inventory. Inventory slot. And we want to add the inventory slot to these slots. Now, if we did that correctly... Perfect. Okay.
As soon as I remember to unlock this staff weapon info. So I'll go ahead and unlock that with all 5 highlighted. I'm going to drag my inventory slot class onto here. And if you open these up, you can see 4 and 5 are blank. We can leave those null in our weapon info class, but all we need to do is on the first one, all we need to do is select our sword. And on the second, select our bow. And on the third, select our staff.
Okay. So we're going to do that for now. Where are we at? Where are we at? Weapon info. Okay. First one is sword. Nope.
We now have all 3 inventory slots.
To just do script, it must be the scriptable objects. Yeah, it is the
and
scriptable
on the third,
objects.
Select our.
There we go. Bow is the second one. And then our staff is the third one. Boom. Okay.
Our staff. We now have all 3 inventory slots properly rigged up to access the weapon info class attached to each individual inventory slot, respectively for the sword, bow, and staff. Let's open up our active inventory class and see what we have access.
Okay.
To. Let's not get too much into it in this lecture. We'll save most of it for the.
All right. Oh, nope. There we go. Oh my goodness, I'm so freaking tired. We met up with some friends last night at a new restaurant, but I was already seriously dragging by the time
the next lecture.
It was time to leave.
Now,
so
let's go ahead just to make sure
I did
rigged up and working
a very,
so let's create a function
Smart
called
thing.
change active weapon.
And I
I'm
decided
going to
to
go ahead
drink
and fire that every single
some
time
coffee.
I toggle the active highlight.
So I felt good while we were out, you know, little caffeine boost. Kept me
At the
going.
very end. So
But
calling the change
it
active weapon function.
definitely made it more challenging to sleep. So I'm very, very tired today. And of course, on top of that, excuse me, I just finished working, which for me, working is also working out. And it was a heavy load day, so my body is cooked, my brain is cooked.
For now, let's just do a nice
And
simple
we're just
debug.log of something
trying
simple, just to make sure it's all rigged up correctly. So if
make
we
the
grab the
best.
transform on which this active inventory class is attached to, we can grab the transform of the get child of the active slot index num to see which slot is highlighted and activated. And then on that slot, we can just get the component of that inventory slot class that we just created. After that, we can call that public method that we just created. I think it was called something like get weapon info. Yep. Access the weapon prefab. And then I think we should just be able to type .name to print out the name of the weapon of the prefab just to see if it's working correctly so far. Let's head back into Unity and give it a shot.
Wow.
With my scene
That's,
open, I can press 2. Yep. And it's going to go ahead.
That was almost like a mouthful there, huh? Okay. So it should tell us what the active weapon is when we cycle through now. But of course, here's the million-dollar question. Well, first okay, so yep, we got sword loading out first because obviously we're on our sword. If I hit 2, we get bow, staff. Sword, bow, staff. Now, null reference. Okay, good. Which we would expect. Sword, bow, staff. Oh, yes, baby! Ha ha! We love it. Okay, cool. So it works for our scroll wheel too. We don't have to do anything extra there. I was worried.
And select the bow, 3, the staff, and number 1.
Just a second.
Close, but so far, looks like we might have not assigned the sword prefab correctly so far. Let's go ahead and debug that together. Ah, yes, just as I expected. In our sword scriptable object, why didn't you guys stop me? You guys are always letting me get away with these silly mistakes. I'm going to go ahead and click lock and just head on over to my prefabs and my weapons and just drag my sword weapon prefab in. Let's go ahead and try that one more time. Console's open. Okay. 2 for the bow, 1 for the sword. And
so the good news is
all right.
we had already set everything up correctly.
And
so we don't have to go back and do anything extra.
To each individual property attached to the slot with our sword, bow, and staff. Well done. I'm excited to keep moving forward. When you're ready to move on to the next lecture, I'll see you there.
Yay, we finished another lecture. All right, so now we're going to move on to actually instantiating the different weapon.
Hello, and welcome back.
Which, again, this is going to be very useful and helpful for when we script out different things, too, right? Because we're going to want tools for affecting the environment and whatnot. Because we are going to be building into this game a little cozy aspect, too. So, like, the main drive, the main focus is going to be the action RPG adventure. But I do want to have some homesteading features as well. So it's not going to be quite as... Well, I say this now. I don't plan on making it as in-depth as like something like Stardew Valley, right? But something simple where you can grow your own ingredients for making various potions for buffing, health potions, stuff like that. You'll be able to participate in some commerce, but I also want to make sure that there's a way in which you can set up like some automated systems, but more like you set NPCs to like work on that type of commerce, so then you can really focus more on the action adventure part. But, you know, we're still fleshing this out as we go.
In this lecture, let's rig it up so that when we press the 1, 2, and 3 keys, we can not only toggle through our sword, bow, and staff appropriately, but we instantiate them and parent them to the player with our sword animation still working as intended.
I think we might end up doing a shorter stream today.
Let's get that
I
rig
might
done.
cut out after
I
like
think the
1
logical
hour and
place
then
to start is in
go
our
take a
active
nap,
inventory
'cause
script. So let's go ahead and open that up. Down here at the bottom where
I already said it, but I am dragging. Okay. Inventory slot. Active inventory. Did we? I feel like we had another one open. I wish. Okay, I guess it is opening this. We must have already had active inventory opened.
we're currently just debug.logging the name of the prefab.
Yeah,
Let's
that's right, 'cause
actually
we added
instantiate it
this
and
in.
parent it to the player. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that line there. And let's first cache a reference to the prefab that we want to instantiate. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by typing game object. I'm just going to call mine weapon to spawn. And then I'm going to grab the prefab of the game object that we want to instantiate by getting that inventory slot scriptable object that we just created. How are we going to do that? We're going to grab the transform that this is attached to, and then we're going to get the child of the active slot index num, get that component in the child of that inventory slot, and grab the weapon info. So get weapon info and get the weapon prefab. I'm just going to put that on a couple different lines.
Oh my, that's a mouthful. Get component in children. Inventory slot. Dot. Get. Weapon info. I do like the autocomplete feature. It helps quite a bit. Moving quicker through coding, which I'm already super duper slow at.
Ends down here. I think that would make sense to do it that way, just so
Pardon me, I did not know that you could do that. So, if I just hit enter, this is still a single line of code. Interesting. Very interesting.
you guys can see it.
But I think we're going to leave it as is for now. Yeah. I'm going to leave it like this, but that's very interesting.
A planning error on myself with get component in children. This would totally work as intended with just the normal get component. However, this will actually work as well with get component in children, as it will first check the game object on which this class is attached to, and then recurse downwards towards the children. So it actually will work as intended without any kind of compilation errors. But just
hello,
wanted to note that
hi,
you can totally
welcome to the stream. How are we doing today?
And it would work just fine. Now that we have that weapon prefab, we can instantiate it and parent it to the appropriate game object.
Okay.
So let's instantiate it. And let's call it the new weapon. So what are we instantiating? We are instantiating the weapon to spawn.
New weapon.
Let's instantiate it at our instance of our active weapon. So active weapon.instance.transform.position. And we just want to instantiate it with its default rotation. So quaternion.ident.
Oh boy, it's always a mouthful. Oh, no, not at all. But thank you. I'm doing all right. I'm very, very tired today. So trying to not have too much brain rot while I'm going on here and, not ramble. What are we up to? So right now we're in the midst of trying to code out the rest of our weapon objects for our inventory. So we've had a functioning sword for quite a while, but now it's time to start expanding that so that way just our combat system gets a little bit more robust and lots of fun options for the future as we dive a little bit deeper into it. Yeah, so that's just kind of what we're working on right now. And this is a mouthful of code right here. We are setting up so that way when we switch, it will instantiate the weapon we want it to. And hopefully this will all work correctly. We'll see. Eternium. And absolutely not distracting at all. I mean, to be completely honest, I'm still very new to this whole streaming thing, so it's always a treat for me when there's somebody actually hanging out in chat that wants to chat. So, thank you. I appreciate that.
Next up, let's go ahead and make it a child of our active weapon game object in our hierarchy.
Okay.
So a couple different ways that we can do that. So you can use new weapon.transform. I think it's called set parent. Yep. Or I'm just going to go ahead and just access the parent directly and then set that parent to the active weapon.
We'll do it that way.
Transform. Great. Let's go ahead and head back into Unity and see where that
goes. All right. We'll finish up this line. And then we're going to test to see if everything's working as intended so far. And then if it isn't, well, we'll beat our head against the wall for a while. Looks good, though. No errors.
Gets us. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click play and then open up my player game object. So that way we have this active weapon game object in our hierarchy. That way if we press 2...
Okay. Let's see. So we... Now that should clear itself out. Okay. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Well, we'll check that out in a second. Let's at least see if this does what we expect it to do. So in our active weapon, right, this should change. So we've got the sword clone right now. Bow clone. Staff clone. Sword clone, bow clone, staff. Okay, so we are getting them to appear. That's good. That's great. We're on the right track.
Perfect. We get the bow instantiated and
of course now that means
3 for the staff and 1 for our sword. And you can actually see we've got it working.
That's why it's
correctly. We've got our sword instantiated way over here, so we got to go ahead and adjust that. But it does look like.
Oh, let's hold on. I want to see that real quick. Okay, so... Oh, yep, there it is. Hey, there's our sword. Whoa, what just happened? What did I do? Oh, I just switched this to something. What the heck did I do? What? Oh my god. Oh, this brain rot is gonna kill me. Alright, we're good. I think select active. Okay, yeah, we gotta redo a couple things here real quick. No, that should be fine. Okay, let's test this again real quick. Oh my god. Okay, yep. There we go. Look at that. Hey, our sword is in fact instantiating. Just not where we wanted it to. Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out what was going on there. I was scrolling in and out, but we also have our scroll set to cycle through this. Okay. Interesting. I'm probably going to have to mess with that at some point. Delegate helper. Oh, that's not something we need to mess with. We'll really screw everything up if we do that.
The weapons are getting spawned
so
in and
at least it's
appropriately as we press 1, 2, and 3.
It is instantiating appropriately. So
I think
we're good with that. We can actually fix all that now.
I'd like to instantiate and just by default give our player the sword. And that should be
okay. So we're gonna set it up so our sword comes in as our default. We want to put that in our start function.
So here on our start method, all I'm going to do is at the very beginning, I'm just going to go ahead and toggle the act.
Wait, toggle active highlight. Is this? Initialize the first slot as active. Okay, yep. No, I do want to leave that. Oh, yep. Yep.
active highlight, call that function, and just pass through 0 for that default sword active slot index number. That way, when we first press play on the game, it'll instantiate that sword and give us the sword by default. All right, so what do we want to do next? Here on our change active weapon function, you saw that when we were toggling in between weapons, the previous weapon wasn't being destroyed. So let's go ahead and fix
Okay.
that first.
Change active
Here in our
weapon.
active weapon class,
We need to open up our active weapon class. That's what we need. Which is in our player folder. There we go.
I'd like to readjust this to not be private, but to be accessible as a public getter. I'm going to go ahead, get rid of the serialized field for now, and just make, instead of this private, I'd like it to be public. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to a lowercase camel.
Okay. So we'll shift this public
Camel case into a capitalized camel case for that public getter and a private setter.
What did I break? Oh, okay. Get private set.
Property that we can access as we need. We'll get a little bit of
Perfect.
a compilation error down here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste that to change that to a capitalized.
And I think we just... Yes. Right? Okay, we got rid of our error.
Save, and we're good to go there.
Not broken. Fantastic.
Great. In our active weapon class, let's go ahead and set up a way that we can set our new weapon to the current active weapon that's currently being used. So I think right here is a good place to put it. Let's create a public void new function that I'm going to call new weapon. And we'd like to pass through a mono behavior that I can just call new weapon. And we can set our current active weapon mono behavior to this weapon that we pass through. Great. That way back in our active inventory, when we change the
You're moving too fast, buddy.
weapon that we pass through. Great. That way back in our
Still moving too fast. What am I missing?
that we pass through.
Oh, okay. Weapon equals new weapon. There we go. All right.
Great. That way back in our active inventory, when we change the active weapon, we can access the active weapon.instance, call that new function.
So we need to get this here. Yes, yes. Does that make sense? Sure. We're still learning.
That we just created and pass through the new weapon that we just created using the get component of mono behavior to attach that properly. Perfect. With that set up, we can now
Get component. Mono behavior. And we'll close you out. Okay. Perfect.
now access that game object of the
Oh, I just realized my background music stopped. Why? Oh, there we go. Hopefully it's not playing loud enough where it can be heard. I don't want to get slapped with copyright. Although I'm not even sure if this is copyrighted stuff. It's just, you know, lo-fi music. But I like having lo-fi on in the background when I'm doing focused work, like when I'm in the middle of my workday or if I'm doing coding.
the previous weapons that we instantiated just in case we want to destroy them instead of them just piling on top of each other. So if the act
Okay. Yeah. So now we're going to set this up so that way we can clean up our hierarchy.
active weapon
Active weapon.
.instance .current active weapon is not null, well then we just want to destroy the active weapon dot instance dot current active weapon.
Okay. Yeah. Now we definitely want to make sure our hierarchy clears itself up, or we're going to create a lot of problems for ourselves. Does not. Where's my exclamation point? There you are. You know, I am so excited for the day where I'm comfortable enough with scripting language that I can just cruise through this stuff instead of feeling like I'm hunting and pecking all over the place. But we are not there yet. It'll probably be a while, but that's okay. That's alright. It's all part of the process, right?
Great. Let's go head back into Unity and make sure we're working.
Okay, so if we set this up right, as we switch and move to our other objects in our inventory, it should destroy in the hierarchy the previous one.
Working so far.
So let that
All right,
compile.
we've got our sword over here. Let's see. We can attack. It's not really working properly yet.
Oh, hey, look at that. So we clicked, and our sword is now sort of in our hand. Okay. But what we really want to check is we want to see this active hierarchy, right? Okay, good. So we can't spam create swords. We move to the bow, it destroys the sword. We move to the staff, it destroys the bow. Boom, 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 boom. Perfect. Okay.
But if we
Awesome.
press our bow,
Everything's
yep, looks like
working.
our sword gets destroyed. 3 staff.
Oh, this is
bow
going
gets
way too
destroyed, and then back
smoothly.
to the sword, it gets instantiated.
It just
Let's fix
leads
this
me to
little
believe
sword issue.
something's gonna break soon
What's
here,
happening
and
is
then
we
we're gonna be
instantiate
beating our head
sword,
against the
and
wall.
even though we set it to the parent of our active weapon, it's essentially not firing the animator properly. So when we press left click, it goes to our swing down animation, and the animation of our swing down and swing up properties will essentially override really what's going on in some of the scripts. So all we need to do is I'm going to access my sword prefab.
Okay. So we're going to need to change something. Oh. Yeah, there's... Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And in the entry, all I'm going to do is go into my swing up animation and just copy this last frame with Control C.
Wait a tick. What? Okay. So we're on entry. Go to swing up. And we're going to copy the last frame. Looks like you've... Why can't I select? Okay, there we go. Just needed to grab the keyframe there. I'm a dingus.
C, head back into entry.
Really? Is that it? No way. And why does that work?
And copy paste it into my entry animation. That way when it goes...
What? Swing up. Okay, short position. Control C. Right? Entry. Control V. Why did that work that time? Whatever, it worked.
Goes into this entry animation by default before it goes into swing down and swing up. It will just go ahead and use this animation frame by default until we press the left click mouse button and essentially fire attack.
Okay, so that's why it's gonna work. Because now we've got it set up so that way our entry puts it right where its position already is. Okay, this is making sense. Oh, hi. Hello there. Welcome to the stream. See, we got a few more people. All right. So it's still not working exactly the way we intended. But at least it's now coming into our hand where we want it to be. Okay. So we're on the right track.
Let's try that and see if it works. All right, great. But we've got an issue still. We'll get there. Not quite working properly. We can attack down, but we can't attack up. Let's go ahead and keep moving forward. All right, back in active inventory, we have those 3 different weapons,
Okay.
the sword, bow, and the staff,
Yes.
but on our inventory slots 4 and 5, we don't have a weapon. So what if there isn't a weapon in one of those active inventory slots? Well, we can just say if the transform.getChild
Okay.
of the active slot index
So
num
we're gonna take
get
care of our empty
children
inventory
of our
slots now,
inventory
so we don't
slot.
get
If
errors.
the active slot index num of our inventory slot doesn't exist, well, in our active weapon class, we'd like to set this active weapon exist.
What was I just doing? There we go. Active slot index num. We've got our brackets there. Get component in children. Inventory slot. There we go. Boom. Perfect.
Well, in our active weapon class, we'd like to set this active weapon dot current active weapon to null. So let's go ahead and create a public method to do that. Public.
Okay. Somewhere in between here, right? That sounds good.
Void. I'm just going to call it weapon null. And all we want to do is set our current active weapon.
Wait,
to
what?
null.
What just happened? What? Was I not just creating a public void there? I'm so confused. Seriously, my brain is not firing at capacity today. Okay. There we go. Now everything's working again. Ugh. I'd grab some more caffeine, but that was part of the problem that got me here to begin with. Of course, on top of that, I've had issues with stimulants in my past, so I do try to not go too crazy with them, even things as simple as caffeine.
Great. Back to active inventory. All we need to do is set our active weapon dot.
Okay.
Instance, and just fire that function that we just created. And I'd like to return, if that's the case, and exit this function entirely before it tries to go in and use any of this logic. All right,
Okay.
let's go give that a shot.
Cool. So, in theory, if we get a null reference, it should just stop the script there. Oh, I gotta save this one too. Let all that compile. Okay. And now... Yep, once we attack, that's it. It's done. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's...
All right, great. We've got our sword, but it's not rotating properly. We can fire the attack, but we can't fire back up, and that's because of that cooldown error. So let's just kind of go through and see where our errors lie. You know what? I think we're about halfway there. I'm going to divide this topic, if that's what you want to call it, into 2 separate lectures. I think this one's getting a bit long. Let's go ahead and tackle some of these errors and get our sword working properly in
Welcome.
the next lecture. I'll see you there.
We're just getting ready to beat our heads against the wall for a hot minute. This is getting pretty thick. Okay.
Hello, and welcome back to this part 2 section where we're full of errors. Yes, let's go from top to bottom and address a few of these.
I mean, good news is we're moving forward. The bad news is it feels like we're adding more problems.
Currently, our sword is relocating to the correct position, but we can only really attack down once. We're not getting the slash projectile prefab or anything like that. Let's handle some of these errors and get it back to working as intended. I'm just going to double click this one here. Hopefully you're
Sword mouse follow with offset. Yeah, I don't think I've got that
getting
error.
the same one. I've got this sword mouse follow with offset error. And
so that's going to bring us to our sword script. Vector 3.
luckily, this will be a pretty simple one to fix. We've got our player controller.transform.position, which we've set as a cached reference up top to find our player controller, and we've got that set up in a way that we did that before we created our singleton class. So we don't actually need this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and...
Huh. Well then.
cut that out. And as well as cut out this player controller cache reference that we don't need as well anymore. Then all we need to do is just set it to the instance of our player controller class. So I'm just
swing up.
going to go ahead and click one. For me, my hotkey is hold.
Ah. All right. Yeah, because I want my swing up to be first. So we'll switch that.
Control and D, and it's going to select all three that exist in the
Okay.
this class, I believe. And then I'm just going to go ahead and type player controller.instance, and we should be all set to go there. Next, we can do the same for the active weapon. Our active weapon is now an instance, so we don't need this anymore. Let's go ahead and delete that cache reference of our active weapon.
Hold up.
For the active weapon. And then I'm just going to go ahead and type player controller.instance, and we should be.
So that. Why didn't you also change this one? Okay. Well, we'll do that manually. That's fine. Okay. So that should be all good now, right?
Be all set to go there. Next, we can do the same for the active weapon. Our active weapon is now an instance, so we don't need this anymore. Let's go ahead and delete that cached reference of our active weapon. And for the active weapon, our active weapon is now an instance, so we don't need this anymore. Let's go ahead and delete that cached reference of our active weapon and do the same down below for wherever we have our active weapon, and just type in active weapon.instance. And
boom. That should be good.
And just type in active weapon.instance.
I
And
think
back
so.
at the top, we have our weapon collider and our slash animation spawn point both set as serialized fields that we can assign in the inspector, but that's because the sword originally is instantiated in the scene from the very beginning. So we're going to need to set that up in a start method to find both the weapon collider and the slash animation spawn point. So let's go ahead and create a start method. I think the way that I want to do this is cache a reference to it in my player controller and then just gain access to that player controller to find my weapon collider.
What?
I want to do this is cache a reference to it.
Player controller. Where's my controller?
in my player controller and then just gain access to that player controller to find my weapon collider. Since the way that we currently have it set up, we have our player that's always going to exist. So I'm actually just going to create a serialized field for my private transform of my weapon collider, just like we had it in the sword class. That way we can assign that inactive game object that is currently in the hierarchy and then just gain access to that in our sword class. And then down here, just a tad right below our Unity method, it's below fixed update. I'm just going to go ahead and create a public void get weapon collider simple getter method. And all that's going to do is return a transform of our weapon collider. That way, when we go back into our sword,
oh, it's not void. Derp. Public transform. Get weapon collider. Return weapon collider. Awesome. Hello. Hi. Welcome to the stream.
Class, we can assign this weapon collider to our player controller.inst.
So we need to go here. Yeah.
Dot get weapon collider, and now we can use this weapon collider transform just as we had it before. Gonna go ahead and get rid of the serialized field.
Wait, did I? Transform. Oh, I think I can get rid of that, right?
Weapon collider transform just as we
Yeah,
had it
yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
Gonna go ahead and get rid of the serialized field and just shift that down a couple lines for cleanliness. Let's go ahead and
thanks for joining me.
Unity.
Hope you're doing
all right,
great today. Oh, we broke something. What did we break? What did we break? Bum, 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 bum.
Let's go ahead to the serialized field.
Oh. Oh shoot, I'm a dingbat. So I need this still, just not as a serialized field. Let's put I'll put it down here, right? My animator game object. Why? I think... Oh, no, it's right there. Friggin' right in front of my face. Oh, come on. We're good. Just ridiculous is what it is. There we go. Okay, we need to clean that up a little bit. It's just space for the sake of space.
Just shift that down a couple lines for cleanliness.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and assign that back in Unity.
I think we're good. Let's save all this. Head back, let it compile. We'll move some things around. We should be a little bit closer to solving our problem.
All right, back in Unity, I've got...
Is it? No, we don't need to be in there. I need... Let's collapse some of this, make it a little easier. We need to be in
inactive
here.
Weapon collider that I've I'm just going to go ahead and drag into this Weapon Collider serialized
Weapon Collider. Boom.
field. And we should be good to go there. All right, but what about this slash animation spawn point?
Right, okay.
To be honest, you could do the exact same thing that we just did for the Weapon Collider and set it up in your player controller, and then just create a simple getter method in our player controller that we can use in our sword weapon class. But just for learning purposes, I'm just going to show you one other way to do it. You can go ahead and copy this slash animation spawn point string and use this string reference just to find it as a game object in our hierarchy. I think one of my fellow instructors, Gary, might cringe a little bit at using this string reference, but I just want to show you two different ways that you could do this. So what I'm going to do is copy this string reference, and then I'm going to head back into VS Code.
Hello.
And then
Hi.
what we can do
Welcome. Where are we? Where are we? I have no idea how much longer my brain is going to cooperate with me.
We can grab this slash animation spawn point that is currently going to be a null reference, and then just use game object with a capital G dot find, and then just use that string reference dot trans.
Right? Okay. Yep. Nope. Game object. Okay.
Transform. That way it'll just go into the hierarchy and try to find this string reference of a game object that exists.
Interesting.
And plop it on in. Good rule of thumb. This is actually not a great idea. This method is much more sound. You can imagine if you were to later on change this string reference, you could definitely get some null reference errors and could give you a little bit of a headache. Probably a good idea to use this one most of the time, but for learning purposes, I just wanted to show you two different ways that you could go about doing something similar. Now, one reason I wanted to bring this up is because you could actually not use this game object.find for the Weapon Collider. Because we toggle it back and forth in between inactive and active, you would not actually be able to find this string reference using this game object.find property. All right, let's go ahead and give that a shot. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click play, and it looks like we're off to a good start. Let's see what happens when we level.
Okay. That's not what I meant to click. Save that, let it compile. Fingers crossed. Okay. So far, so good. You know, I still don't like this initial little swing thing. So it swings up first. It shouldn't. It should swing down first. I mean, if the sword started at the bottom, it would make more sense. So, how do we fix that? The first action should be a swing down. Let's check this out. Oh, that's why. So we can, why am I forgetting how to do this? No, we don't want to create a state. We don't want it to transition like that. So let's make a transition to our swing down. Okay, there we go. So we can probably delete this one now. Make sure all these look the same, though. Nope, no exit time. That'll be attack. There we go. Okay, I think that should clean that right up for us. Let's see. Oh man, I'm so excited. This should work. Okay, so far so good. Sword moves with us. And the first swing is down. There we go. Perfect. I'll kill this slime. Just cuz. Okay. Awesome. Fan-freaking-tastic. Oh. Okay. We're gonna finish up this section. And then I think we're gonna call it a day there. It's not like I have an audience watching me. Well, we've had a couple people in and out. We have one chatter. That's kind of cool. But yeah, I'm just moving so slowly. I'm not getting much done here, and it's hurting my head.
Left click. Ooh, I like that. No errors. Everything seems to be working. If we go and hit 2, great. We've got our bow. Let's make sure that's still being instantiated properly. Ooh, very nice. Oh, even better. We hit bow and we left click. We've got our bow attack.
Oh, I probably should test that, huh? Okay. Great.
We hit 3, we've got our staff attack, and let's see, moment of truth. If we go back and hit 1, we've got our sword, and yes, everything seems to still be working as intended. Great. Now we get to move on to the more exciting things and implement some logic using this pre-rigged up staff and bow attack and give our individual bow and staff their each unique properties. All right, I'm excited. Let's move forward to the next lecture when you're ready, and I'll see you there.
So yeah, that's gonna do it for today, guys. Like I said, I can't focus. I can't do this kind of deep work right now. But next time, well, obviously next time I might get through some of this, but the next things we're going to be working on, we're going to get our visuals for our bow and our staff. And, yeah, we'll start building out some projectiles and magical things that our staff can do. And then that should set us up pretty much so we can make just about any kind of weapon we can conceive at that point. So that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Really appreciate it. If you had fun, like, comment, subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.